Take roll. Mayor Lloyd White.
Here.
Council Member Mr. Martinez.
Here.
City Manager Todd. Do you know if Todd is
Here.
Oh, all right.
Rebecca's
Todd.
sitting in
All
his
right,
place.
All right. Right, Rebecca. Okay.
Just do it, Mike.
Cal Orsinski.
Here.
There it is. Bernie Ballin.
Here.
Bertha Barraza. Not seeing her right now. Terrence Davis, present. Randy Harris. Here. Jennifer Higgins.
Present.
Mike McGraw. Not present. Rob Morin. Not here. And our student representative, Dylan Odell. I sent the information. I am expecting to see Dylan, but do
He was
not
here
see.
last.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, he did?
I
Okay.
give him credit for that.
Okay, I didn't know. Okay, all right. So he gets a circle and a check and a plus and a star. Okay.
2 stars.
Okay. Okay. If we can stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, and Ms. Higgins, can you lead us in the pledge?
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Do we have any adjustments or anything different to the board agenda that we're aware of? Kyle, anyone? No? Okay. So agenda is as published. Is there anything on the agenda this evening that presents a conflict of interest for anyone this evening? No. No? Okay. All your businesses are tight. You're good? All right.
We're good.
Mhm. Okay, so this is the public comment period. Is there anyone here to provide public comment this evening? No, not seeing anyone. Okay, so no public comment. Item number 2, action items. So the approval of the minutes. I hope you guys have all had a chance to review the minutes from October 11th, 2017. Any issues with the minutes? So entertain a motion.
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Higgins and seconded by Mr. Ballin. Call for the vote. All say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, abstain. Okay. Abstain, Ms. Ross. Warren abstain. And we do have our student, Dylan Odell. Dylan, you can come sit right next, or wherever. Yeah. Welcome, Dylan. Glad you're here. Okay, so the minutes pass. Item 2B, member term expirations and application process.
And one other thing, we have the record show that member Moran is here. So Rob is here, thank you. And as well as committee member, what's Dylan's last name?
Odell.
Odell. So we'll put that on. O-D-E-L? O-D-E-L-L. 2 L's. Got it. All right. So we'll put that in the minutes as well. So upcoming member application process. Yep. So, if you remember, we had certain terms that were set for each of the committee members. There are 2 committee member terms that will be expiring as of January of 2018. I brought them applications, but unfortunately, both members whose terms are expiring are not present tonight, so I'll have to go ahead and email them. And that's for the Chamber of Commerce. And I've actually reached out to the Chamber of Commerce and asked for their executive director to start attending, but I'm not sure, I haven't heard back from her at this point in time, whether she has a schedule conflict or not. So we're open to whether it's a board member, the executive director from the Chamber of Commerce. I'll go ahead and shoot them an email with the application. And then the other term, or committee member, is for the community college district. So I'll go ahead and it's weird because I swear I received an email from Bertha saying that she was gonna be here tonight, so she may be stuck in traffic and she may be arriving shortly. So either way, I would hope that each of those organizations fill out an application, and that way we take their items to the January council meeting for consideration, and then hopefully appointment of those individuals on the committee. Another exciting thing is that we have received an application from a representative from United Way for one of the business community members. So we're gonna be taking that also to council in January, and hopefully council will appoint that individual to the committee as well. So that'll leave us with, I think, one vacancy at this point in time, so.
And what is that vacancy? What type?
I think it's another business member.
Okay. I invited Mr. Brady to come and consider it, so.
If you want an application, I got one for you.
It's a lot of fun.
No pressure, just, I
I
have to go.
and I would have been past this.
It's all timing.
But you did say one application that needs to be completed as a chamber member also, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Because Randy Harris is expiring, is that?
Well, so the way council had it set it up was the Chamber of Commerce had a membership seat on the committee. Originally, it was their executive director, and then that person had left the organization, and for a while, they didn't have one. So that position was being fulfilled by a board member, and Randy was one of the board members from the chamber. So now that they have a director again, we've reached out to that person and asked them to attend. I'm not quite sure if their schedule permits. So I'll be working with the chamber closely to see if they want to appoint a board member. Whether it's Randy, I think he's been having schedule conflicts, but I think they have like 10 or some odd board members in the chamber, so maybe another one is willing to participate. So I'll let you know as soon as I find out. So that's all I have for that item.
Okay, any other questions, clarification needed? No? Okay, moving.
Just real quick, so you have 2 terms that are expiring, correct?
Yes,
And no one else expires till next year, is that right?
that's correct.
So next December then?
I think technically Todd's position and then my position expires, but I didn't know if we needed to actually go back and
No, I don't think
fill out an
yours-
application, or if council would just simply reappoint us come January.
Yeah, I don't think yours would be
We
expiring.
pretty much figured you'll reappoint us anyway, so.
Yeah.
I think you're lifers. You're lifers, yeah.
Yeah.
You're in.
As council directs.
Okay.
Ever.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to 2C, update for projects from the city.
So we have a couple small updates in terms of prospective businesses. We're moving forward on that stuff for the Sonic and the Panera Bread. So they're in the process of getting their grading permit in the near weeks. So hopefully they'll start moving some dirt out there on site. And then another grading permit's in its final stages, and that's for that Sundance Corporate Center, which is on the northwest corner of Highland Springs and 8th. Very close to the elementary school.
Yeah.
So that'll be some nice Class A and B offices with some retail in there as well. We vision most of those spaces to be fulfilled by medical offices. So
That's going to be the new Beaver Urgent Care as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So any of those will probably end up landing within that complex. So those are good paying jobs that don't exist now that they needed extra space. So that'll be a nice center that's moving forward.
What
And
did you
then
call the first one? You said it real fast. I heard Panera Bread, but what did you call it?
The Sonic
Sonic and Panera Bread?
fast
Okay.
food, and then there's some other users in there too, but the community's most interested about ordering Sonic burgers and Panera Bread. So
Yes.
those are the ones I refer to.
When we see that on council agenda, what's the name of that project called?
Center Point.
Center Point, okay.
it won't really go back to council unless we have some updates. And I think that Todd and I, as some of these projects are progressing, may start to give some progress updates at council meetings so that council as well as members of the public that are watching kind of know what's going on within the community. We should be doing some public information stuff as well through our public information officer on when stuff starts breaking ground so people get excited for good reasons. And then lastly, we're in the final stages of attracting a large food manufacturing business to the city. So they're in the final stages of closing escrow, purchasing a building that costs multi-millions of dollars. And that's down there on 4th Street. It's an existing building that's been vacant for years. So the job base is attractive. The fact that they're actually making something is something that the city's proud about, and hopefully they'll end up calling Beaumont home as soon as they can iron everything out with the different utilities that will need to serve the building. So as soon as we get like a heads up that everything's okay, I'll go ahead and report that back to council as well as the committee. But I wanted to save most of the time for tonight's meeting for a general plan update, so I can let Rebecca, our community development director, kind of introduce our consultants that have been working on it, and Rebecca's been working diligently on this process as well. So how far are we into it? About how many months into the 24-month process?
We're about halfway through.
All right, so we're halfway
Almost halfway
done.
through.
So we're almost done.
So,
Huh.
almost done.
Interesting math.
Are we
Yeah.
closer to done than starting?
No. We got one more month till we're in the middle. 1 month.
Next
we'll be
month,
in the-
next
by the end of
month.
the month, we'll be closer. Basically, a 2-year process. It was taking 2017 and 2018 as kind of our expectation in calendar years. So we're almost there to pass the halfway point, but not quite yet. So our consultants are Ramey and Associates. I have Monica and Simran here to kind of go through their PowerPoint and give you an update on what we've done so far and what our next steps are.
Hi, good afternoon.
Hello.
Hey. So my name is Monica Guerra. I work as a planner with Ramey and Associates. And yeah, today we wanted to provide you a little bit of an update on the general plan. We'll give you a little update on the general plan process, where we are in terms of timeline, what that halfway point kind of looks like. We'll review community engagement to date. We also wanted to review some key areas of change that we're sort of thinking are going to happen over the course of the plan, and then go back to what our next steps are. So project overview. A general plan basically provides a long-term framework for the city. It's mandated by the City of California, and it really is thinking about your vision, but also what your policy goals and priorities are for the future. The planning horizon for this specific general plan is going to be approximately 2040, so just to keep that in mind. Many times it's often kind of referred as a mini constitution for the city. So in terms of the general plan process, we did an initial existing conditions report to kind of, tee up what the landscape of Beaumont looks like. We conducted some stakeholder interviews. During the summer and fall, we did some strategic visioning. So we were present at the Cherry Festival. We conducted a community workshop. We did 2 community surveys, and we've had 2 different meetings with the task force. We're now at the point of creating plan alternatives, so thinking about a couple different scenarios for what that long-term vision might actually look like in terms of land uses and in terms of transportation. So as part of that, we put out a community character survey. We did a youth focus group, and again had a task force meeting. You see the star sort of indicates where we're at in terms of the process. The next key pieces will be developing a policy framework, then developing the draft general plan and that draft EIR, with the goal of having a final general plan by the end of next year. Okay. So community surveys, in case you haven't seen or heard about them, we've had 3 so far. The first one was a general community survey. Again, we were just trying to put the feelers out there for the community, try and get a sense of what you all like and don't like about the city. We had 564 responses. The purpose, again, was on various topics. So all across the board, looking at things like demographics, geography, quality of life. What do you guys like in terms of community engagement? What do you guys want in terms of your future?
You want us to interject with questions during or after you're done?
After would be great, if
Okay.
that's okay with you. Thank you. So the second one was a visual preference survey, and what we did there was basically lay out 8 different categories and put pictures up for the community to try and give a sense of, when you talk about liking open space, what types of open space do you like? You know, when you talk about housing, what type of housing do you like? We got even more responses. We had 854 responses, and it gave us a sense of what types of design the community liked. Again, these online surveys have been really successful with your community. We, again, laid out these key themes. I'm not going to go into all of it today, but basically we asked them about open space, parks and recreation, arts and culture, street design, shopping types, employment facilities, single-family residential, and multifamily residential. So we're able to get a sense from the community of what they preferred, right, in terms of design for each one of these. The last survey we called the Community Character Survey. And we were really asking participants, residents, to tell us, in terms of land uses and in terms of community character, what they preferred. So again, now being a little bit more strategic about what types of land uses do you guys envision happening here in Beaumont. We had about 678 responses. And in that case, what we did was actually break up the city into very strategic areas, right? So one of them was actually downtown, which you can kind of see in this picture, covers the area. The eastern boundary is the 10 freeway. The western boundary is Palm, and the top choice by survey responses was actually mixed use 2 stories. So in downtown, community responses really said, hey, we're okay with 2-story buildings in downtown. In terms of the actual streetscape, there were 3 things that the community really prioritized. They liked the idea of having some sort of signage to really mark the entrance to downtown. The second thing was having more street furniture, so things like benches, right, places to sit, wide sidewalks. Third choice was public art. People generally, in terms of actual comments, were like, hey, can we have them all, right? And so I think generally sort of gives an indication, even though they did vote on a couple of top priorities, there is a sense from the community like, hey, we'd like something that would revitalize downtown a bit. The second area we asked them about was the 6th Street extension. So if we think about downtown all the way to Highland Springs, right? We really call that as a transition zone. And there, the community said, hey, we're actually okay with going up to 3 stories. So if downtown is 2 stories, that extension area could actually be up to 3 stories. We asked them about the area west of SR 79. This is a little bit south of downtown. They like the idea of having a mix of traditional neighborhoods and rural residential. They also like the idea of having highway commercial. So think there about big box type of retail right off of SR 79. And the idea of having more open space and recreation. East of SR 79, so again, this is another one of those strategic areas, also south of downtown, also sort of resonated, they resonated the idea of traditional neighborhoods and high density residential. They also like the idea of having something that we called regional commercial. So this is something sort of like a mini Victoria Gardens, thinking about having that a little bit farther south of town. So what are the main takeaways from all this? Community, for the most part, really likes living here in Beaumont, right? People generally say we like the place we live in. There are some things that we'd like to make a little better, right? And you can kind of see the second bullet on kind of talks about specific things that they'd like. Things like creating a safe, walkable environment, an appreciation for the small town character, thinking again about the lack of downtown. So those are all things that we're hearing from the community time and time again. And after we conducted the surveys, after we compiled all these community outreach, we met with the task force and basically created a vision statement. And I want to read it to you. I'm not sure if you guys are all familiar with it. What we came in agreement with was Beaumont, where we value our small town feel, our community heritage, and our natural setting. We are committed to encouraging economically sustainable, balanced growth that respects our long history while meeting infrastructure needs and protecting our environment. Beaumont's community pride and rural mountain setting sets our city apart as a vibrant and healthy community with local access to retail, services, jobs, and recreation. So that was presented at a planning commission meeting, and there was some small refinements, and this is ultimately what we came up with, and this is what we're working with for the purposes of the general plan. So next steps, we want to finalize the 3 land use alternatives. we want to present this to the city council, and we'll be presenting next week with the intention of identifying a preferred alternative. And the follow-up step from that will be actually developing a fiscal model and mobility analysis of that one preferred scenario. So stay tuned. In case you don't know, the website that we're putting all the information on is elevatebeaumont.com. But I know you guys may have some questions, so wanted to open up the space for that as well.
I was curious, how did the surveys get conducted, or who are they sent out to specifically, or did I just miss some?
So the surveys we've been tracking a listserv. So people who are interested, when we set up the website, there's a place where you can actually sign up to receive updates. But in addition to that, the city has actually been reaching out via social media pretty extensively to try and get feedback. And again, the response from city residents in Beaumont has actually been pretty high. So when we're getting 500, 600, 700, I know that doesn't, represent the entire population, but it's actually a pretty high response when we think about responses to these types of community surveys. So
We also, as mentioned, we sent out and had people at the Cherry Festival sign up for the list. We sent it on our bill, our sewer and trash bill. We sent an informational on the envelope to sign up to get that information. And we did it through Nextdoor as well. That's why I put it on the outside of the envelope. I knew people
That's why
couldn't
she don't let
read
me
it.
get the mail.
I put it on the outside of the envelope to let people know that we are updating our general plan. Sign up on our website to get notified of meetings and surveys. So we've done our best to reach out to everyone to get on that listserv who's interested in participating.
And the other thing I should mention is the process isn't over, right? The community engagement is ongoing, and so if you guys are not on the list, you guys should definitely sign up. We've also been creating newsletters to provide periodic updates. Those are posted on the website, and again, we'll continue to update as we have things come up. So.
Does this have anything to do with the Facebook surveys that were going out? Is
That's
this
what it is.
Yes.
tied together? Okay, I saw that.
Yeah, that's
I just
how
didn't
we're
know.
sending out the information through Facebook to link to these
Okay.
surveys.
Good job.
Are the surveys only in English?
The surveys have been in English and Spanish. I think the first one was only in English, but yeah. So.
If I go into the the City of Beaumont website, I remember going on there and seeing the pictures, but I can't recall if you can access the survey to answer questions directly from the city site, or do you have to go to Elevate Beaumont?
When we had the surveys open, we put it in the news feed to link to the survey directly, just like the Facebooks did. So we don't have it necessarily ongoing because the surveys are closed at this time because we're taking that information and accessing it. But we did have it directly under the news feed of our website to get to those surveys as well.
The results that we saw right now in the PowerPoint, are those available on the website? So I had some residents ask whatever happened, what results were from their survey.
Yes, they should be. Julio, if there's anything that you have not seen, please let me know. But I have been updating the website after all the surveys, and I know how many people responded, and then we put like a summary report that identify responses for every single question.
Oh, and
So,
with the percentage of what the
Yep.
results were. Okay.
yes,
And
those
do we-
reports
They're
are
long
only,
documents.
yeah, and those are only available in English.
Have
So.
we put that out on Facebook, a link to those summaries?
We have not.
Okay, I think you should, because I like to take the city Facebook and then just throw it out on my Facebook. So
Yeah, okay, we can definitely do that. I would suggest that maybe we can put it in a Facebook so that we can get more people signed up on the listserv directly on there so that they get notified, and we can start making sure that we put notifications that the summary is sent out to that listserv. That way we're not trying to, we're leaving the outreach to get people to participate versus just the follow-up. So if we can get people signed up at Elevate Beaumont, then they'll get all the updates directly. So I'll definitely put that out, remind everyone to sign up for results of the surveys.
maybe the Facebook post could just be for results of the survey, click on this link and it takes them to
Right, and please sign up so you
Elevate
get
Beaumont.
notified
Right.
from Elevate Beaumont directly. I think that might be a good idea as well.
So if they took the survey, they don't automatically get results back.
There was no place for contact information. They would have had to sign up on Elevate Beaumont to get our newsletters and things like that for follow-up surveys. They would need to sign up for our listserv on that website.
And did the survey have demographic information in terms of people that are submitting the survey, like their age or so forth?
Yes, so two
Okay,
things.
good.
One, people don't always respond to those questions,
Right.
so I wouldn't say that they're complete. But we also ask people, for instance, like, do you actually live in the city of Beaumont? You know, are you employed? Do you live in Beaumont? Do you work in Beaumont? So we were trying to get a sense of, for the most part, I mean, we're getting people. I mean, two things that I should know. For the most part, we're getting people, majority that live here in Beaumont, right? We get some small portion of people that work in Beaumont, and even a smaller portion of people that, you know, are visiting the city or have friends or family here. And in terms of demographics, it's a I mean, so far it's been a pretty even split with what your demographics represent in terms of like a third older population, a third sort of middle, and a third not below 18, but sort of young adults. So.
Because we have our student representative here from the high school, and again, his interest in this is learning about all of these things, and
Yeah.
we have, as a school district at times, difficulty or challenge getting feedback from that student group. So linking in, Dylan, to what the results are and how you can share that with your peers would be really good.
Absolutely. And one thing that we did do was, and I know this does not speak for, you know, the entire youth population, but we did conduct a youth focus group at Beaumont High School.
Okay.
To try and at least get a sense of yeah, what are you guys thinking, or
Good.
which was actually really helpful. So,
Good.
any other questions?
I think, how do you see that East 6th? I can see the 2 stories in downtown, but when they say East 6th and then 3 stories or above, and seeing what we have existing, I know this is forecasting until 2040, and so things can change a lot before then, but what kind of use of buildings would you foresee as being in a 3-story building?
So, I mean, we're talking about mixed use, right?
Right.
In downtown and the 6th Street extension. And I know sometimes it's hard to picture it when you're looking at Beaumont the way it is now, right? But when you think about the growth that is happening around the city, right? But also, you guys have the potential of actually having a rail station, right? And thinking about ways in which you could have more connectivity, right? More walkable neighborhoods. If you start imagining those things being there, it makes a little bit more sense, right? And I think it can be a combination of I mean, there's different approaches. Like sometimes you have more retail on the bottom, you have housing on top. But sometimes, I mean, one thing that we talked about in that 6th Street extension area is something that is something more like a neighborhood center, right? So thinking about ways in which we can have more housing, and then strategic areas where we would have retail. We haven't gotten into the design for any of
Right.
these. That'll be a little bit later down the process, but just trying to kind of come down in terms of levels. So is that helpful?
It helps you, it helps them determine what to zone that area. So if the area is zoned as mixed use, you still have a council and a planning commission that decides what can go in there, but you can't put industry into a mixed use, or a warehouse into mixed use. So it's sort of more of a guideline for your future councils and planning commissions.
And one thing that came up in the community survey is, oftentimes people, they're not as interested in warehouse heavy industrial uses, right? And so thinking about ways to move away from that in ways that are still beneficial for the city and that can promote benefits. So, questions? So elevatebeaumont.com, you guys are gonna sign up?
Yes.
Great.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good job.
Okay, so Kyle, does that include the update from the city?
Sorry, you caught me off.
Does that,
Messing with the thumb drive.
does that include 2C?
I don't have anything else of note. I mean, you may be aware that the city has received our bids for the Potrero interchange, and we're reviewing those for quantities and responsibility to make sure that they can actually do the work for those bids. But we're excited about that. Public Works will probably be taking that item to council for award of the phase 1 of that contract within, I don't want to put Palmer on the spot, but sometime maybe in January or February. I think that's what he's been talking about in terms of an ideal timeline. And then what else?
I don't know if this is something you could do, but sort of an update of the road improvements that we've been going through and what's
Sure.
next, if you know that.
I know enough.
Okay.
To give a small update.
That's what we're looking for, is small.
That's what yeah, so as you may or may not have noticed, Xenia and Oak Valley Parkway were repaved. Actually, Xenia was reconstructed. So we're nearing the finish line on that one in terms of getting it striped. So if you're wondering why Xenia's taken so long to get finalized, is we found that some of the sub-grade soil was messed up, and literally when we first paved it, you could drive a heavy vehicle over it and you'd actually watch the asphalt shift still.
Wow.
So we had to remove some of the soil that was continuously wet and recompact, put in new soil that was dry. And so it's what happens when you have a really old street that has cracks, is water just continues to get down there, and that's what makes Xenia look like it used to. So needless to say, we're gonna be opening up those for full traffic in the next month or so, but you should see striping going in on both of those streets. And then the city recently reviewed our pavement management index plan, and that's where we basically took a survey of every single street within the city and gave it a grade. It's not A through F, Karen's, but it's close to that. And
Satisfactory.
Standards
unsatisfactory?
based.
yeah, standards based. I don't know if we did it with the Common Core curriculum or not, but it was, because I still don't understand it, so I wouldn't be able to explain that. But generally, the city has a decent index rating, but that's considering a lot of the streets in the city are new. So if you were to eliminate some of the new streets from the new developments and just simply grade the city on the old town, it's a very poor rating. So what we need to do is, throughout the next couple years, we're gonna be identifying streets that are in dire need of repair, and that the expenditures get the most bang for the buck, like Xenia. A lot of traffic, decent cost, but a lot of bang for the buck in terms of what you're doing.
Offhand, do you know what Xenia cost? Because the cost of that type of work is just unbelievable. I can pull it up. Yes, I mean,
I want to say it was around that dollar amount. I could be way off.
yeah, but it's extremely expensive, and I don't,
Especially short of a.
Yeah,
Yeah.
roads are expensive.
depending on how far you have to go down. And
There's a street that you have to completely redo that no one drives on it. We identified it's bad, but the bang for the buck isn't there.
right.
So we would better use spending that where high traffic loads are, and that way you have more people benefiting from the expenditure of that taxpayer dollar than a street that's not heavily traveled. So the goal is to repave and actually redo streets with our new gas tax increase. So part of that, the SB1 money is coming to the city for road repairs. The council will be identifying what streets are the highest priority with that best bang for the buck number, and that's what we'll be rolling out on an annual basis with the Public Works crew.
We added a sidewalk to the west side of Xenia. Didn't have it before. East side has not been developed yet, so we can put anything over there. But the next one, I think, is 8th Street from Highland Springs to Pennsylvania.
Penn, I think?
Yeah,
Yeah, which is pretty bad.
Yeah.
And then another
That'd be a good
fun
one.
thing is council did allow the Public Works Department to purchase a large truck that we will actually be doing pothole repair in-house at the city, once we hire a couple additional staff, versus contracting it out. And it's a big ticket item to purchase the truck and the equipment, but when you compare that with how many potholes we were fixing per dollar versus doing it in-house, it's a one-time expenditure now to fix a lot of potholes over the next year versus same money fixing much less. So we'll be taking some of these projects in-house and doing them with city staff as opposed to using contractors.
The only comment I would make to that is I've heard a lot of comments from our community about seeing some of those improvements and being excited about it. But on the same token, as we're experiencing the growth, the rapid growth in the infrastructure and things that are needed, and we have a plan, if you will, but it's not always articulated out that people know, there's a concern. And so I don't know where people would go for that information that the city is, okay, these are the plans, these are the timeline, these are the proposals. And so that's something that we're working on as well. And that would help kind of ease some folks' anxieties, if you will. Okay, so before we move to 2D, just want to note for the record that Ms. Barraza joined the meeting at 4:13.
Thank you.
Glad you're
Sorry,
here.
I was on another meeting.
13 minutes. Wow, that's good.
Oh, I had a question for Kyle Lopez. Cherry Valley and Palmer Way, where it says Stater Brothers was coming and changed the writing and so forth. What was, any idea what's going on there? Some people ask me about that, that are around that area. Is it just kind of,
It's Calamasa, right? That's
Yeah,
correct.
I've heard rumors that there's a shopping market going in, or supermarket going in. I haven't actually been told from Calamasa. I can reach out to them and see if they have a good response for what's going on, but I think it's some sort of commercial center. Do you know? Have you seen their environmental or anything like that on it?
It didn't say, who, it just said some
Okay.
site plan layout. Have no idea who they're planning
I
on
know it's
putting
really
in there.
not our area, but I just thought maybe since it was so close to us, you might have heard.
They don't like to tell us that stuff.
Yeah, I know.
Eh.
It's all right. We have ways.
Okay, so moving on to 2D, discussion of Economic Development Committee goals, short-term, long-terms, and objectives.
So
It's
I can
been a
take this
while.
one. So if you can think back to when we talked about this item last, we were throwing out different ideas on what the committee wanted to work on, and the committee decided that each member would go back and think about, kind of do some homework and think about what things that they would really want to champion and what tasks they want to perform, or at least propose to council to perform with like a subgroup, and bring this back to a future meeting. So we have this on here in case any of the committee members had met with other ones and decided, you know, we really want to move forward on this. A really good example is what Bernie's been working on in coordination with the school district, and then it was another school district as well, right? On the apprenticeship program. So that's a good example of kind of saying, look, we want to do a creative apprenticeship program. We talked about that in the first couple meetings here, and IBW's been working on that with the school district, to kind of set up that first kickoff event and involve our youth in this city with their trades program. So that's one example. If any other committee member has an idea of a program or wants to propose a program like that meshes or jives with the goals and the vision statement that the committee has, by all means, throw them out there and we can talk about them either tonight or at a future meeting.
Do we have the goals? I haven't seen the goal. I mean, I'm sure I saw them in council, but is it something you can share with us, or is it a long document?
No, they're fairly small. I'll have to figure out which one they are.
Because I have some ideas. I didn't get the homework because I wasn't in this class at the time. So, but I have some things that I think that I'd like to see the committee take the lead on. So while you're looking at that up, I think to attract more businesses to come to Beaumont, we have to take care of the businesses we have here.
Right.
And I think I have seen from emails I get from business owners with problems or issues that we have a couple ways that I think we can really move forward and help the existing businesses. So focusing on working with the current businesses, I think, is an overall goal. Some of the ideas I had was I've been dealing with a business owner who is sort of stuck in the permit process. And, you know, we all understand, I'm sure you do very well, Mr. Davis, about you can't go around it. You have to go through the process. But I think as a committee, we should understand better that process and see if there's ways that we can help businesses go through that. Maybe we have outreach to businesses, which sort of leads me to my next one, which is I think we need to work with our chamber to provide more resources to existing businesses, and the kinds of resources that I would like to see. The chamber already does it to some extent, but I think if the city were to get behind it and support it and work together, with just to provide seminars, study sessions, whatever you whatever you want to call them. There could be one about the permitting process. There could be one about how do you deal with the new tax laws, things like that. I think if the chamber, I know, has been doing that, but not. They're just not. They may not have the resources that the city has behind it to be able to coordinate that. And then the last item. So those are two sort of under the heading of helping existing businesses, and I'd love to get the rest of your comments on that. And then the other one is, I think we've talked about this, I have with Todd, and I don't know if you guys have discussed it, which is the idea of developing some summer internships for people working in the city, for students that want to come and learn what planning's about. And we had one of your students, the oldest Earl daughter.
Okay, Michaela.
Okay. Maya is my daughter's best friend, but Michaela is the other one. She came in and wanted to see what we could do to work more with students. And Todd and I were brainstorming with her on the idea of creating some internships so people can understand what does planning do, what does public works do, things like that. And Todd was really very creative in his ideas of how we could move on that. So I think those are some roles that, as an economic development committee, we could sort of direct or take the lead, or be oversight on that to make sure that kind of stuff gets done.
I like your idea about seminars. I think videos should be done. Videos so that people could link on the website to see exactly what the permit process is.
Yes.
And even the summer interns could help on things like that. But if you had a video that people can actually understand what they need to do in the process, I think that's huge. And it's becoming more and more common nowadays.
Yeah. Well, and I think if planning were to provide a presentation to a group of businesses that we've invited, and then we record that,
Right.
then we only have to do it once.
Right.
And I think it would be very useful. And maybe there's a way, I get these emails because my role as mayor. We do get them sometimes as council member, but Julio will find out when it's his turn that you get a lot more as mayor. And it's I can send an email to Rebecca or to Kyle or to Todd and start working on it. But I think if there was a process, maybe we can come up with a way to make a more approachable process for people. Because I know you go to planning. I've had this with Rebecca for ever since I've been on council. Yeah, can't we go around that? No, you can't go around that. It's got to be done. It's got to be done this way. And I think planning and public works people have that culture, that mindset. And so if there's a face that we can put in between that, so that the business owners aren't beaten up on planning and public works, I think that would help develop the kind of atmosphere with our businesses that I think will attract more businesses when they see how well we take care of them. And I tend to run on, so I'll stop talking at this point.
We yeah,
To
and
build on his retention thing, so one of the main things I've learned in the time I've been here is when you try to attract a new business, most oftentimes they'll talk to the city, and then right after they talk to the city, they start talking to the existing businesses. So if you've neglected your existing businesses, well, that's the second phone call they make. Once they've talked to the city officials and they're on board with bringing in the city, they go, okay, well, let me call one of the biggest employers in the city and see how it really is from them versus trusting a person that works for the city. So if you have these programs that help the existing businesses, it does help you in your assist in your attraction efforts as well.
That effort, if you can have a way where we can invite them to introduce themselves, they have the school district, they have the chamber here, they have all sorts of different resources that they can explain their business, what their needs are, what they're looking for, and kind of help display them or showcase them, so that we see what they have to offer, and then we can give them suggestions to what we can do in each of our different fields. I think that would also help promote that.
I think one of the things you have to worry about that is if a new business is considering Beaumont and maybe considering Banning or Calamasa, they're not necessarily gonna want to be public that they're considering Beaumont. You know, they wanna be able to, and the same thing, we don't wanna be, it's not, I don't think this committee's position to be working deals.
Well, that suggestion was after they're established.
Right.
So once they're permitted.
It's like an
and
intro.
And yeah, kind of
Oh,
an intro,
right,
here we
okay.
are, more of an invitation to here we are, we're here for you, what do you need, here's what we need. Yeah, not at the recruitment.
Well, I have something that I want to share that fits along with this conversation.
I found the goals in the vision statement.
Okay.
You want to hear this?
Yeah,
I don't want to cut off the chairperson.
something short.
You can cut me off. You're the
Yeah, no, it's easy going. It's teamwork.
I don't know that gal.
Yeah.
So, the Riverside County Office of Education Superintendent, Dr. White, would like to start kind of this conversation through the county. And what she's proposing is to have what she's calling a unity conference, which would be the first year. So it involves really educators as well as government officials, law enforcement, and businesses, although it doesn't say that there. And so what she's asking for is each school district in the county to bring roughly about 20 people. So it'll be school district folks or whoever, and I thought this would be a good forum to do that, to, in essence, really develop a framework on how we develop strategies to help students gain access to resources and learn about, school district community businesses and create that link. So I think she has a good overall plan to do that. And maybe this is something that can assist us, if there's a clear framework that's developed, how we work together and how we pull students in and how we connect them to the business and to city. And so I would like to, what I'm trying to do is develop those 20 folks. And I thought of this group. And I know Dr. Brown at the district who works with a career in college, he's going to reach out. There's another group that he meets with. And so I think this will be really good for the city, for PD and some of the businesses to be a part of this. The speaker is Ron Clark. He's a gentleman out of Atlanta. He runs a school. And when he speaks, he just electrifies people in terms of his perspective on how to work with people. And I don't know Dr. King at all, but this is something that if you're interested, please let me know. But looking at what is the platform we could utilize to assist us in those goals. So I just wanted to share that. It is in alignment with this.
So to refresh everyone's memory, the committee vision statement was that the Economic Development Committee shall work to create a balanced, sustainable, and diverse business base that leverages existing local business while filling in gaps by creating a plan to recruit and market to new businesses that will benefit Beaumont's growth, quality of life, and values that the City Council sets forth. And then the goals were to develop an economically balanced community, recruit new businesses while retaining and expanding local businesses that promote growth of primary jobs and/or sales tax revenue, create a quality of place that establishes Beaumont as a community to grow a business, and leverage the city's strengths to maximize business opportunities.
So everything you said, Mayor, was right in alignment with that. And so it's how do we get off the ground with these are the things that we're gonna have or develop and put in place.
So, I'm sorry. So can, I know this is probably, item E is, or item D, double I is tasks. So we need to start getting these kinds of ideas and the ones that follow on future agendas.
Yeah. Like a good example of a task is people to volunteer to kind of create that summer internship program. And I don't know if it needs to be summer interns or if it's, if we were to work, I'm just thinking San Jacinto has students that don't go to school full-time. And they may be available, I mean, I know when I went to college, I was there Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So in theory, I could have had an internship on Tuesday, Thursday if that was in my wheelhouse.
We actually have an internship program. We have a person, a counselor, who is in charge of developing internships and part-time jobs and all that. Perhaps we can ask him to help us out and maybe collaborate with us and see how we can create more internships for our students.
Yeah, I'd be willing to speak with them on that one. And then we
Okay.
can reach out to, I don't know if Terrence, your district has an internship program, or when they're within K through 12, that's too early for them to start interning, or if they want to,
Or high school students would
so maybe
Right,
they
I
would be
mean-
inclined to do a summer internship if we can convince them to stay at City Hall for a summer.
So does that sound like something that your peers would like to do or be interested in, Dylan?
I don't know about my immediate peers exactly, but I know probably some people would be interested in that, yeah.
In addition to that, we have, in addition to internships, we have what is called work study. So students, if they come and work at your business, and if they don't get paid, they can actually earn units. According to the number of or hours they volunteer, they earn so many units. Or if they are getting paid, of course they don't get units. But actually, I'm sorry. I need to double check how that works. But it's a system that that you can do it by working. Oh, if you get paid, you get less hours, but if you don't get paid, no, it's the other way around. If you get paid, you do less hours per units, but if you don't get paid, you get fewer hours. So it's I can look it up in the catalog and bring the forms and show it to everybody. But it's through a different person that the program is run through. That's why I don't know it that well. But I can definitely get the information for us.
I think we have to be careful talking about this with the Brown Act, since we didn't agendize these two items. But I'm thinking going forward that we have an agenda item that considers, in my mind, a couple people. I think the internship is more, the leadership on that would probably come from the city. But if we had a couple people sort of as liaisons or assigned to sort of report back to us on that, other than you, Kyle, because that'll probably be part of your job description anyways. And then I think on finding ways sort of to improve local businesses, we could consider a subcommittee, an agenda item to consider a subcommittee, or maybe the whole committee wants to do it. But if we start discussing internships and stuff like that, we haven't properly noticed it, then we have people in the community who may want to be here to talk about that. So,
And having that a part of their business, because it is a lot of support,
Right.
That's available.
And I have one concern about, I'm all about us finding a thing that we can, dig in and work on, because I feel like we need to do that. But right now we have 2 business positions that are unfilled. We have chamber that is unfilled, and we have, what was the last one?
I think that was it.
No, that's right. I thought we had 2 others, but we have 3 positions that we truly need to fill and find a spot for, so that they can have their voice heard. Because if they're going to be on here for the next year working on the things that we choose, that's not quite fair to them either. True, the people that are here have been here consistently, but we need.
When we get them
to
on the
take that into
agenda,
account.
we should hopefully have some people that are now appointed to those positions. That's assuming that Bertha reapplies.
Hey, yeah. I don't think I have a choice. I'm not the only one here in this
We like
area.
to think that way.
Great, so she's reapplying.
Right.
So, yeah, once we get it on the agenda, like the mayor said, we can kind of talk about it now, but in terms of like actually saying, let's go ahead and establish it, we probably don't want to do that on this agenda. So we'll put it on the next one. I can go ahead and work on some stuff with the school district as well as the community college and see if we can get a little bit more information at that next meeting to decide on. And I can also try to reach out to, maybe I'll have to use your Rolodex, to reach out to like UCR Riverside County, or not Riverside County, but Riverside Community College to see if they have programs they may be interested as well. Maybe Beaumont's too far away, but who knows? I know UCR participates through WRCOG's fellowship program that the city's gonna try to utilize next year, and that's a graduate student. And they actually will pay the graduate student to come be a fellow at City Hall. A little bit more work involved in an internship, as in they're looking for real-world experience on a specific project or two that they can then utilize within their education. So I'm looking forward to that. Hopefully there's someone that goes to UCR that wants to work with me. But I guess we'll find out, right?
Just to give you an idea, the county has a relationship with UCR, in particular the School of Business and Public Policy. And we do paid and unpaid internships with both of those schools. Now, public policy requires it as part of their curriculum, so they have to do, I think, a minimum of 8 weeks. And, you know, you approach it differently, one's paid versus unpaid. But they do some unpaid internships as well. And, you know, that might be something to look into. I'm sure there's somebody from this region going to UCR.
Yeah.
So that might be something that's worthwhile, especially public policy.
What we can talk about is 2B, which is upcoming committee member. Again, I'm new to this committee, but it seems that this committee, compared to the other committee that I was on, the Finance and Audit Committee, has a challenge in not only keeping members, but keeping alternates. So that maybe there's a way, do we need to reach out individually to try and bring more people in? Because we can have alternates that can come in and talk and discuss and just not be able to vote. We've done that on the Finance Committee, and when we've had openings, the alternates are able to just slip right in. So Mr. Bray brought up some questions about about businesses and his business, and so I said, come on in and get a feel for it. So are there other ideas on how we can build interest in being on this committee?
I think that each of us know enough people within the area that we can reach out to at least one person and try to get them to at least fill out or contemplate being on this committee, either as an alternate or as a voting member. Yeah, I think that's absolutely something concrete that we can do.
Now that we have goals and a vision, I think that helps
Right.
advertise us better now. So we,
Right.
we want to know what's this all about. We can pull that out. But I think we have to also advertise the committee. There's just not a lot of people out there in the business community, I think, that realize that we exist. So, I mean, we have to advertise ourselves plus our mission and then go out and recruit. I don't know if we physically knock down doors, but like you said, we know people that know people.
Right.
So we can start by word of mouth.
Would you like to fill out an application to give you my person?
No, well, you got it.
Sorry, Lloyd.
What about like a joint mixer to introduce what we're doing with the chamber?
Yeah.
You know,
I know,
some
that would be
of-
fantastic.
You know,
That would be fantastic.
They have their once a month Beaumont, what's it called?
Good morning, Beaumont.
You know,
That's a
we made
Tuckwit,
it-
right?
What's that?
It's a Tuckwit?
Yeah, it's the first Friday of every month at 7:30. They put on they have a good menu there. And if we got the committee to go out in force,
Right.
you know, one meeting.
What is it, the first Friday of every month?
Yeah, I think that would help.
So that'd be February.
Help get us out there,
January 5th.
you know, and then as we start to get wins, I think one of the wins you guys had was the SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
And I think if the community is aware that that's sort of what this committee's doing, and some of the other things that we've talked about, I think you're gonna get more people are gonna say, hey, yeah, I do wanna be part of that.
So you're talking about piggybacking on that, going to the chamber? see if
Yeah,
we can
I'm
jump
thinking
in?
going to the chamber and reach out. When's our next meeting? The 10th? And the next,
Yeah, January 10th.
the next good morning would be the Friday before that.
January 5th.
But if we could, put in place an idea about how we're gonna work with new businesses, then we have something to take to maybe the one in February. We can go to the chamber in February and say, look, here's what the economic development, here's the direction we wanna go in. And then, you might be surprised how many people there, I mean, there was about 50 or 60 people that are gonna say, hey, and these are the kinds of people who get involved and will do things, so.
And they have two things, so I don't know if we could get on their schedule in terms of presentations, or they do have community announcements.
Right.
Where you can come up and talk about whatever the event or issue is to gather kind of esteem and feedback or.
That's a good idea. Yeah, they do that at part of the meeting.
Yes.
And that might be a good point, that if we have something to sell, that you could go, Kyle, and present it
I
as.
was gonna make Terrence be the keynote speaker. He's the chairperson.
I'm usually in the
I'll
audience.
call him right now and see if February is reserved for the speaker.
Well, actually, they just sent an email to book the school district, but for, I think it's like 2000, it was September 2018. So I don't know if their
Okay.
schedule is out that far, but
Yeah.
if it is,
They have a
then
member
just
each time
coming.
do a presentation on what they're doing.
And just coming and sharing, and maybe if it's something you create, we create an infographic of, here's the SWOT analysis,
Yeah.
here are the goals, and just even sharing that to get kind of participation and see interest, that would be good.
And I'm thinking also with the internship, if we build the idea, and maybe we have something to meet with people at the high school. You know, we can, you might get students interested, but at the same time, you might get parents going, oh, this sounds interesting, maybe, I'd like to be part of it. Because like I said, I think if you have alternates and more members who are gonna show up, and you have a better pool to pick from. And I do think the idea of sending out those emails ahead of time helps. The ones that say, are you gonna be here?
Oh, yeah.
So we have a quorum.
It helps.
Yeah, it helps a lot, yeah.
So I'll ask Nicole, either myself or Nicole do it. I really wanted to do it this time, especially since the mayor requested that I do it, but I wanted to make sure that I didn't ask Rebecca's consultant to be here for a presentation, then she was gonna have to pay them whether they actually did a presentation or not. So I wanted to make sure that we were gonna have a meeting before we
That makes sense.
put them in their schedule.
Right.
So I can definitely do some of that stuff. By all means, I can talk at the chamber meeting. Or we can see if they have other meetings. They used to do mixers that weren't part of the Beaumont breakfast thing. So maybe we go to a Beaumont breakfast, pitch it for another joint mixer day on a different day.
Right.
At a different time. I don't know. I'm in favor of the breakfast. At the same time, I've done mixers in the past where it was 4:30 or 5 o'clock in the evening at a business location, and that's the showcase business for that chamber mixer event. And then if we were part of that, then it would be a joint mixer between the committee and the chamber held at said business. Just a thought. So we'll see how it works. I'll go ahead and contact. I have to call them anyway because they have to fill out an application or else. So
If you do on the 5th, I'll go and I'll support you. You can speak, but I'll support you.
are you sure?
Yeah.
And I'll be there
'Cause I
too.
can do it Friday morning, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
Go, Jim.
Chair, Vice Chair.
So something that you talked about, Mayor White, was the alternates. I believe we had a conversation, it was maybe 3 months ago or so, about definitely if you're not going to be here, have an alternate here. I don't know what happened last month. But nevertheless, I think pretty much consistently, this has been a pretty good group.
Right.
But having that person come in to report back what's going on, the information, that would be good. But I think we are kind of stuck at this point in, what is that next step? And some of the conversations we had, I think, the month before last, was about direction from council. So if we as a committee talk about, okay, let's do this and bring this to the council, versus the council talks about, we want the economic committee to do this task, this project, that would assist us.
Okay.
And again, going back to our goals, and then I think some of those comments that you made are directly in alignment, but I think coming from the council as this is the project to the committee would be helpful.
Okay, sounds good.
That's just my thoughts, but. Agree. Any other?
If we're still on the short-term goals, I can pass these flyers out to you guys so you guys all know. Well, we finally, through Glenview High School and Beaumont High School, we're able to coordinate a date for January 31st with Eben.
Yes.
It's Eben, right?
Yes.
Mr. Brown?
Yes.
And Carlos and Dr. Bonnie Burnett, right?
Burnett, yes.
Burnett, over there at Glenview. So we're hoping to get 50 students from each. Well, I believe we will get 50 students from each, 100 students total. And you guys are all more than welcome to attend that day. It's pretty interesting to see all the different items that they go through. The four different projects or parts that they're broken up into: math relevancy, first aid CPR, and then electrical safety and theory, and then the hands-on portion. So the students get to go through all of those, and it's actually a good opportunity for them to get a feel for what the trades involve. This isn't too much electrically related other than the electrical safety portion of things, but it's a good opportunity for students to kind of see, you know, what else is out there in case they're kind of confused. When I go to the job fairs with students at these high schools, what I like to do is ask them what they want to be when they graduate, when they're going to graduate, and what they want to be. And there's usually about 7 of them that say they don't know. So I say, all right, well, think about it, because I'm going to come back to you. And when I get to the end of the class, I go back to them and I said, did you decide what you want to do? And they say, no. I said, okay, you're working at McDonald's. I go to the next one. I say, what do you want to do? They say, I don't know. I said, okay, you're working at Baker's. I go to the next one. What are you going to do? Okay, you're going to work at a tire factory. I said, because that's what happened to me. You know, when I didn't know what I wanted to do, I ended up at Baskin-Robbins. Then I got a job at a tire place, and I was blessed to have found the apprenticeship, you know. I should have pursued I wanted to pursue higher education, but it didn't work out that way because of student loans and whatnot. But it's a good opportunity for those students that don't know what they want to do to see another avenue to make a good career that provides them a good livable wage, benefits for them and their family, a pension, and no student debt. So if you guys are interested in coming, you guys are all more than welcome to be there that day.
This is open to anyone or only for high school students?
We'll do it for anyone. That particular date will accommodate the 100 students that we're going to get from Glenview and Beaumont High School. But if you have students that you want to bring, you can coordinate with myself. Do you have any students you'd like to bring?
I can definitely share this with my students.
Let us know. I mean, Beaumont High and Glenview, they're going to bring the buses for those students, so transportation is an issue usually on getting them down there.
Themselves.
Yeah, if it's under 20 or 10, you can get a hold of me.
Okay.
But all of us, you know, or anybody that wants to have somebody just come to view it, it's kind of unlimited. You guys are more than welcome to come walk through, check it out, sit in on one of the classes. But as far as the spaces for students to go through the 4 different courses, that's where we limit it to 100 because there will be 25 per class right there. That's the reason.
Starts at 9. What time do you anticipate it's going to end?
About 2 o'clock.
So Dylan, you're probably not aware of this, huh? Oh, yeah. So I'm gonna have to email you and connect you to who's organizing it at the high school, and maybe you can help kind of generate information from your peers as well.
And if, Bernie, if we want to stop by and check it out, is it kind of like we can go later?
Yeah. Yeah, the morning part will be kind of an introduction for whoever's there. Say hello to anybody that did show up early, just for the beginning part. But the classes will run each 4. We break it up into ohms, watts, volts, and amps. Those are electrical terms. And then they just go in between those 4 classrooms. So you guys can go in and out. The one that's usually the most catching is the electrical safety. He has a bunch of bandograph generators and cool things that you guys can see. The kids usually get the biggest kick out of that one. So yeah, come in and check them out.
What time is the program supposed to end at?
About 2. It'll end about 2.
And for Beaumont, I know this is, Bernie talked to me about this when this committee started. That was almost a year and a half ago. So sometimes it just, on top of me being slow, sometimes it just takes some while to get going and make it happen. So I just want to thank you for that, for staying consistent and on that.
No problem.
One comment, I think we need an agenda item here for these kinds of reports. Because we have people representing each, like the school district,
Yeah.
and you're representing a group as well. That all of the other meetings I'm in, one of the last items is member reports.
Member reports,
And
that's a
way,
great idea.
You know, it gives an opportunity.
Kind
for
of
that.
share out.
Yeah.
That's good. Okay, so 2D, are we, do we have some guidance or
Got some stuff to bring back for the next meeting.
the internships?
I think each of the committee members provided somewhat of an update, but somewhat related to the tasks at hand as well.
Okay. Okay, so 2E, topics for future agenda, which we were just talking about. So we talked about the apprenticeships. I think that's, and then other things that you're gonna bring forward, Kyle. I think that should do it, right? Is there anything else that we need to?
When you have items here for future agendas, do you decide, okay, this is the next one we want?
Yes, so that was the goal, to list some of the potential topics and then select. So
Okay.
next time we'll talk about this, or we'll talk about that.
Okay.
So we have apprenticeships, and then I don't know, Mayor, with working with the council in terms of developing projects specifically for the Economic Development Committee, how long that would take, or what that looks like in terms of development.
Well, I think you need to, I think if one of us do a report, that's sort of what we're looking for, then we'll get it on our agenda. I am trying to promote, and this is why I brought this idea up, and I guess you're Rob. I've never met you before, but I was told you're the person I need to talk to. We need to develop, as a city, we need to develop an economic development strategy. And I think that as a city, if we develop that, or, you know, even go further and say, what does that mean? Is it an economic development foundation, or is it something that we can move forward on that? And when I brought that up to our supervisor, Ashley, he suggested that I reach out, that Todd and I reach out to you with my ideas. So I think if we bring that to council as a discussion item, we can do it in our member reports this next week, and then get that on our future agenda, which is probably January also. And hopefully we'll have some direction by the February meeting. That's my goal.
So the other thing, I'm just thinking this out, and I think it will be helpful for us the next time we meet to come back with, you know, a copy and a visual attached to the agenda of this is the vision that was developed, these are the goals. That way we can develop at least a list of, these are some of the tasks. Some of the things that you mentioned. That way, it's not blind, but here are some of the things that we talked about that we can help support or develop in the future.
Sounds
And I think that would help the council as well. Okay. Any other conversation on 2E?
With the local area hire preference with the upcoming projects, I also sit on the Vet Expo. Here, it's held here. Nancy sits on it with us too. I don't know if we're gonna move forward with any of that language. I know we talked about it with council before, but with projects starting to come out, and with us working with these students, what I always tell people is putting people in these apprenticeships are great, but like I usually love to put at least 2 or 3 of these students that come to these to work. And if they're going to graduate and then we get them to work through our CW program, which is a stepping stone into the apprenticeships, and then if they do well, the CW program, if somebody falls off, it's like a transitional program. So if they end up falling off, it's no harm, no foul. But when they get into the apprenticeship, they're actually we're invested in them highly, and they're an indentured apprentice. So if they end up falling off at that point, it is kind of rough. But I can put some people to work through the CW program pretty quick if there's jobs for them. And the same thing with the veterans. So that the local area higher language or preferential treatment for veterans and stuff, that's something that, as a member of the Economic Development Committee, I would feel that I actually did something if any of that ever does happen, because I know being in construction, I go on job sites and I see individuals from all over, from LA County to Arizona, and they don't live here. So they work here and then they leave. When if somebody that works here gets a chance, those tax dollars stay in the community. So with that being one of the potential future topics for our agenda, and with projects possibly coming up soon, I just wanted to throw it out there again, or at least open up the discussion with you guys.
We could put it on a future agenda if the group agrees to it. I know we talked about it conceptually. I know that this committee can't do anything to actually enact that. In fact, it'll probably need to go to legal, an ordinance created from the city council to establish kind of rules on that. Because right now we fall under public bidding laws. And if you basically go with the lowest responsible bidder for construction contracts. I always get irked when a local company doesn't win versus an outside company, when their mobilization costs should have been far lower. So when you look under line items and it says mobilization, the guys out of LA are half the cost of someone that's local, it just doesn't make sense to me. But we go with, maybe they used it as a loss leader or something like that, but from what the city council has to do is we award to the lowest responsible bidder, unless the council directs or creates their own law, which is an ordinance that says that we would go with a local bidder preference, and then in essence you'd pay more than the lowest responsible bidder to incentivize hiring local people.
So sort of to build on what you brought up, and sort of what Bernie brought up as well, I think if you were to get, if I'm looking at this list here, and I don't want to overstep what I can say and can't say, there's going to be some items on here that council's not going to want you to do. I think what you're suggesting is something we're all in favor of. So I think if Julio and I could take to council a list of future agenda items you guys are suggesting, with maybe the committee's preference, that then we have a starting point. So, because I wouldn't want this committee to start working on an item that I think the council's gonna say, for one reason or another, we don't wanna do that.
Right.
And so I think maybe in the next, we could do it here, but I think we need more items to consider for the future agenda items. So maybe in the next meeting, we can prioritize these, and then we can get it on our agenda that an item where we can provide direction to the Economic Development Committee based on your priority. And it also gives us the opportunity to say, hey, what about this idea, for other council members who aren't on this committee. But I think looking at this list, local hire preference would be probably at the top of the list for most of the council members. So I'm not saying that's the item on here, but anyways. So I think if at the next meeting we could add the items that we've talked about and then prioritize them, and then get them to council the second meeting in January for direction.
And Kyle, I see that as kind of like we started with, coming back to goals, vision, and then an activity where we're kind of brainstorming those things out and developing to come up with a written document, if you will, for council
That'd
to
be
kind of go
ideal.
through.
And then if we have an agenda item that says consider what Economic Development Committee wants us to, the direction,
Yeah.
then it gives us the ability to say, yeah, we're good with, why don't you start working on item 2 and 3?
Exactly.
And by the way, here's a new item you guys hadn't thought about. So I think that would help. But you're right, getting the local hire language is a long, it's not a quick, easy process.
We go through the same process you just detailed.
Yeah.
Council directs the committee to work on it. The committee members, instead of staff, do some research and find other local higher preference ordinances, rules that work and didn't just get enacted and don't necessarily work. So they do some research and then bring that back, present it, then we as staff take it to council. It would be something that the committee worked on and produced a tangible result that then an ordinance was written based on the work from the committee. So that, to
Sounds
me,
good.
that sounds like a good idea and a good timeline or a process to go through.
Good. Any other comments? Topics for the future? Okay, that looks like our last agenda item. So,
Gift exchange.
oh,
You guys forgot.
white elephant only. So we'll go ahead
Remote
and
control.
adjourn at 5:20.
I got a pen.